Like, oh, well, Giannis back-to-back MVPs, but early playoff exits.
Yeah.
Can Chris Middleton be a solid, reliable number two? We already know the answers to those two questions.
Hello and welcome to the Friday, October 15th edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're having a fantastic day and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I do have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other great content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That would be highly appreciated. And for all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe. Leave a review if you're an Apple. That will definitely boost up the numbers. And also for my Spotify, Anchor, and Podbean listeners, just show your support in any way possible. That would be highly, highly appreciated. I have an awesome show lined up for you guys today. On Monday, we went through my Western preview, my Western Conference standings. And today, we're going to be going through the Eastern Conference. But this time, I'm going to be having a guest on the show. He's been here before. I think he last came on in season 3. Tony Tucker, Project Drivel of the Warzone Sports Network. How's it going, my man? It's been a while.
It's going great. I'm happy to be back here. And I'm glad that you didn't make it so that I had to talk about the Western Conference because I would have been very biased. But after Russell Westbrook's 14 turnover performance in the preseason, I'm not going to lie. I was like, what's happening? Like, how do you turn it over 14 times in the preseason? Like, nobody's even trying.
I know. And they lost to the Warriors bench lineup. I think it was last night. Oh, boy. That was a rough time for your Lakers. But hey, look, Russell Westbrook teams always start off slow. Hopefully they're healthy. If you want to see where I rank the Lakers in my standings, check out the last episode. I'm still pretty high on them, even though the preseason has been kind of rough. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the Eastern Conference. In this episode, we're basically going to go division by division. And still, we're going to talk about where are we going to rank each of these teams in the East. It's going to be interesting because a lot of, I think, the topics right now, like circulating the league, is going like around the East with the stuff with Kyrie Irving, the stuff with Ben Simmons. The East is like popping up with the news right now.
Yeah, no, I think that it's going to be interesting because the Nets pretty much would have been my favorite, right?
Yeah.
But now it looks like they're just going to move on away from Kyrie, and it's like, but you're not going to get anything for him because
it's interesting.
I wouldn't have minded a trade for the Nets. I mean, personally, I want the Nets to be bad, but what I'm saying is if you have Kyrie, it would have been nice if they could have gotten anything for him, even a swap with Ben Simmons, or if they have to go get 2 players from Indiana or another team, and move on from him and bolster their roster a little bit is what I'm getting at, basically.
Yeah, for sure. And we're definitely going to get into that when we talk about the Brooklyn Nets. But yeah, we're just going to go to each division, going to give us our predictions, and it's going to be a great episode. Tony, are you ready to talk about the preview, a season preview?
Let's get it.
Let's get into this. It took a while for us to start recording here, some technical issues, but we're ready to get into this. And we're going to start off with a bang. We're going to start in the Central Division, and we're going to go with the defending champs. Let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Last year, finishing first in the East. They had a great season last year, obviously winning the NBA championship. And right now, they basically have the same lineup as they did last year. They got rid of PJ Tucker, but they also had players like Semi Ojeleye. They brought back George Hill, but the roster is basically still the same. Tony, how are you feeling about the Bucks this year?
I feel great about the Bucks, and the one thing that makes the Bucks more dangerous this year is getting over all those hurdles. Because when you enter the season, it's like, oh, well, Giannis back-to-back MVPs, but early playoff exits. Can Chris Middleton be a solid, reliable number two? We already know the answers to those two questions there. Can Coach Bud get them over the hump? We now have the answers. They're coming into this with they know what the fight is like to get through there. You lose Giannis for 2 games in the Eastern Conference Finals and you fight through it. You go down in the finals 2 games and you come back and run 4 off against a team that was hot, and the basketball world was in love with this idea of CP3 becoming the greatest point guard of all time because he finally won a championship. It's like they dismounted all of that. So This Bucks team to me is really great, really dangerous, and the most dangerous thing you can have is talent mixed with confidence, and they have both of those.
Yeah, that's definitely in my notes here. I mean, they just got that monkey off their back. That whole thing with Giannis was, yes, he has all the regular season success, but can he duplicate in the playoffs? And last year, he proved that that was the case. 50 points in a closeout game, game 6 of the NBA Finals, one Finals MVP. He basically proved all the haters wrong. And going into the season, all the Coach Bud narrative gone, the whole Middleton narrative gone. They're doing really well. And I mean, we're gonna talk about it with the Nets later. I mean, we mentioned at the top of the show, Kyrie Irving is might not even play for the Nets this year, which gives them another opening down the line. They're still one of the most cohesive teams. I think they're going to do really well this season. And for my prediction, I have them really going second. I'm going first place in the East once again this season. I mean, they've done it from time to time again. I have them being the number 1 seed in the East. And honestly, the thing that really swung me was the Kyrie Irving news. If he's not going to play, then it's just less bodies for them in the regular season. And although I do think the Nets may still be the favorite in the playoff time, I just think that at least in the regular season, the Bucks are going to finish first. Tony, where do you think they're going to finish?
Yeah, the Bucks will be my 1 seed too. One player we didn't give a shout out to is Drew Holiday, right?
Yeah.
Like he's another guy who he was taking a lot of flack for not showing up offensively in some of those games.
Yeah.
But I think he's so talented offensively. He's a perfect regular season player for those nights when Giannis is like, yeah, I might want to take 6 3-balls tonight. You know,
yeah,
Holiday can fill in some of that scoring when Giannis has like kind of his experimental 3-point shooting nights. So Bucks number 1 seed in the East entering this year as strong finals contenders in my book.
Of course. Let's move on to the next team in the East, at least in the Central Division. And we're going to take it down a notch. We're talking about the defending champs. Let's go to the team with the first overall pick in last year's draft, the Detroit Pistons, coming in one of the in the bottom 3 of the East last year. But they lucked out. They got the number 1 overall pick. They got Cade Cunningham. And that just adds to the young core of Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes, Cade now. They're starting to develop something there. Tony, what is your feel on the Detroit Pistons this season?
So they're going to be competitive, and I think they're going to be fun. We didn't really get to see a lot of their, I think it was 7th overall pick last year, the Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
But that kid can handle the ball, and he can score, and he's fun to watch. My favorite player on this team is Sadiq Bey. I ended up watching him one night. They were playing on the West Coast. It was like one of those games where it's like, why is this on NBA TV type of a deal? You know, like they're playing the play or something. But I started watching Sadiq Bey and I was like, this kid, he can play basketball. He got hot. He could shoot the ball in the game and he was playing defense. I picked him up in fantasy and like last year and was like, just started rooting for him. So although this team is probably a few years away and, you know, Cade Cunningham is going to be competing for Rookie of the Year or whatever, I think it's going to be a fun Pistons team. And we'll see how they incorporate still playing with like more of a traditional big man, because I think Stewart definitely deserves some minutes from what I saw, but it's definitely sort of his style is more old school than the new school big. So it'll be interesting. Yeah,
for sure. And I mean, we talked about Sadiq Bey, you talked about Isaiah Stewart. Both were all rookie team second last year. So they did show some promise on that Detroit Pistons team. We didn't get to see a lot of Killian Hayes, which we will hopefully see a lot this year. And of course, Cade Cunningham is a star guy. Just get him as many opportunities as possible. Let him try and get that Rookie of the Year. I think like for the first time in a long time, it's been like there's like a good vibe around the Pistons, that there's some sort of excitement. And hopefully Cade just brings fun basketball. Like Tony said, they just need that injection of like just fun hoops, because even over the last decade, I mean, their star players were Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, past his prime. Not the most fun players in the world, especially because Blake was no longer Lob City Blake. But now bringing Cade, this guy, 6'9" guard, probably can handle the rock. It's going to be a fun watch, possibly Rookie of the Year. And I think that's all the Pistons fans can hope for. Just hope that they are a fun watch, because they're not going to win many games, but at least if they're fun to watch, they can still get the draft pick. I think it'll be at least some good must-watch basketball. But in terms of my prediction for this team this season, I really don't have them going anywhere close to the play-in games, but I still think they should be a team to watch. I don't have them dead last, but I have them 14th. I think they're going to be 14th in the East, and they're going to be vying for another top pick in the next year's draft. Tony, where would you rank the Pistons in terms of the East teams for the standings?
So here's the thing. If they finished somewhere around 10 or 11, right?
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
think that they could be one of those teams competing because the East isn't that strong. So I would put them somewhere down there. I haven't made a definitive list of where it would
Yeah.
be, but I could see them somewhere in between that 10 to 13 range of teams in the Eastern Conference based on height. You start feeling yourself like, I
Yeah.
don't know if you notice this, how much more confident Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards was at the end of
Yeah.
last season. And I think we could see something like that with Cade, where maybe the numbers are around 17 to 19 points a game, but all of a sudden the second half of the season, Cade Cunningham starts becoming more of a closer, and you're
Yeah.
getting big minutes from Sadiq Bey, Hayes. I'm not sure who the veterans are that are going to be leaders on this team, but like I could see them challenging for that sort of 10 that final play-in spot. If
Yeah.
they're healthy, I could see it.
Yeah, I mean, like that could be a possibility. I just think they're kind of young. They don't really have that like kind of older presence there on the team just yet. But maybe they have a chance at that. Maybe Cade is an all-world talent right away. Maybe he can have the LaMelo Ball effect, like he did on the Hornets last year. But we'll have to wait and see. Next team in the Central Division, we're going to be talking about. I mean, we went from near the bottom of the East. We were at the top of the East before. Now we're going dead center. Let's talk about the Indiana Pacers. Indiana was in the play-in tournament last year. They did not make it. I think they won their first play-in game and then got absolutely destroyed by the Washington Wizards in the next one. But yeah, I mean they're still like basically the same team as last year. Malcolm Brogdon. They still got Jeremy Lamb, Karis LeVert, TJ Warren, hopefully coming back from injury, Turner, Sabonis. Basically the same roster. They did lose Doug McDermott as well and brought in Torrey Craig. But I don't know. This team just looks average as ever. They didn't really improve their lineup too much. Tony, what do you think about the Pacers going into this season?
Well, I think this team is one that is interesting for trade potential, right? So it's
Yeah.
hard to say. I feel like this team could go the Orlando Magic route at some point this year, where they start saying like, who wants some of these players? We're hovering around the 7th seed in the East, and maybe Brogdon gets shipped out. But they didn't have Karis LeVert for a big portion of the season last year. I think if he's
Yeah.
back and he's healthy, he can be a difference maker. I like this team probably finishing somewhere in the 7th, 8th seed just because of talent. I think Miles Turner gets into the Defensive Player of the Year conversation, maybe if the team is winning some games. And Sabonis, gets some more love for all-star mentions and stuff like that. But this is, this team is
They're
it's Indiana.
average.
It's just
They're
kind of
average.
boring. Yeah, it's like they're gonna finish in that like 7, 8 spot somewhere, like there.
Yeah, I definitely feel you there. And I mean, that's exactly what I have in my notes. I mean, a lot of these guys can be traded. I think the only person really that they probably want to keep is their all-star and Domantas Sabonis, but Karis LeVert, possibility to be traded. Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, TJ Warren, I think all of them could possibly be on a trade block down the line. But before we get into my prediction, I mean, do you think they should trade for Ben Simmons? Do you think that this trade, maybe if they pair Ben Simmons and Domantas Sabonis together, maybe ship out Brogdon, ship out LeVert to Philly, do you think a trade for Ben Simmons could kind of keep this team competitive and also just take him to the next level?
So I don't know who else would be in there, but I think Brogdon's a real nice piece for the Sixers, right? Like I
Yeah,
think he fits what they do really well. He feels like a Doc Rivers kind of player too,
yeah,
like one of those guys that borders on like chippy, dirty kind of play,
yeah,
like Rondo. Like he's very
yeah,
like he overachieves for
yeah.
how much skill he has. And so I do think that the Pacers should be very aggressive and try and see if they can capture something in Ben Simmons. Like,
Yeah.
maybe they bring him there and there's just less pressure. Well,
Yeah.
I know for a fact in Indiana, there will be less pressure than playing in Philadelphia. So automatically, I think he was just more comfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that the Sixers should definitely be pursuing that team because I think you can get multiple pieces that can make you a contender in the East from that team.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So yeah, that's definitely a trade possibility down the line. As for my prediction for the Pacers, Tony said they're going to be around the 7-8 spot. I have them slightly lower. I think they're going to capture actually the last spot in the play-in tournament. I'm just not a huge fan of the team. They didn't really like do much. And I think the biggest thing here is that they just have like a lot of these like their key players like Warren, like Karis LeVert, like Miles Turner. They've just had just quite a number of injury issues over the past year and a bit. And I think that's still kind of lingering to this year. So can you even trust these guys to stay on the court together? I'm not sure. But my official prediction is that the Pacers are going to finish 10th in the East. Let's move on to the next team. And this has become like one of the offseason darlings of the NBA. This next team in the Central Division. Let's talk about the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls made a lot of moves this offseason. They already had Zach LaVine. They made the move for Nikola Vucevic, your guy, last year during the trade deadline. And then they brought in DeMar DeRozan. They brought in Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso. They're just adding more and more to that offense, which was kind of lacking past Zach LaVine. And I mean, surprisingly, last year they were top 15 in defense, so they were a solid defensive team as well. Tony, I mean, one of the teams in the NBA which made a bunch of moves. Are you buying into all of this Bulls hype?
So I am one of those people that love the hype. I will buy the hype, but like I also believe this. I don't know that Zach LaVine is the guy that I want taking the shot for my team at the end of the game. I think he's fun. I think he's exciting, but I'm not sold on him as like, oh yeah, couple minutes left, final couple possessions, we're putting the ball in LaVine's hands and he's going to be a shot. Like he can be a shot creator. I've just not seen enough. Like this is the guy. Like he's very exciting.
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan, I wanted him on the Lakers badly. I think that he is a great player. I thought he would have made a tremendous six man for the Lakers. I don't know if that's your number 2 scorer, how well that's going to work out with you, work out for your team. And Vucevic, again, like it feels like to me in a weird way that Orlando somehow broke apart and then the universe forced it all back together with all this hype and potential in Chicago. Like different, like, hey, we got Aaron Gordon. No, we don't. We got Zach LaVine. You know, like these guys where it's like Aaron Gordon, we waited forever for him to be like a superstar. And now he's just a good piece on a good Nuggets team. Like how many years until Zach LaVine is like, oh, he could be the 3rd guy or the 6th man on a team. We're not that far away from that being that part of Zach LaVine's career. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I think like last year, like he really took that next step. I mean, he averaged almost 30 points a game, made his first All-Star team. And I think the biggest thing with the Bulls last year, especially, was that, like you said, they put a lot of pressure on Zach LaVine at the end of the game to create his own shot, to create for that team. But he can't do it every single possession. Now they made some changes to the lineup. They added DeMar DeRozan, who can do that at the end of the game. Lonzo Ball can set up other players at the end of the game. And hopefully a training camp with all these guys, trying to get Vucevic involved. I think that this team's going to be good. I want people to pump the brakes a little bit because we still really haven't seen them on the court together in regular season play. But I think this is a playoff team. I really do think so. Zach LaVine is the number 1 guy. I don't know how far he can go with that. But at least with the pieces around him, I think they have enough to at least, maybe knock on the door of a first round upset. I'm not sure, but I still think if this team is just too talented not to make the playoffs at this point. They have 3 former All-Stars or 3 All-Stars in a sense, but I do think that the Bulls made these moves. Whether they're going to move into that upper echelon of the East, I don't think so, but we have to wait and see how this team is going to play out. But Tony, I mean, you're not as high as them as I am. Like, where do you think possibility this team is going to place?
I have them in the same bucket as the Pacers, right? It's like you see talent, you see potential and opportunity. You talk about the defense. I think that Lonzo Ball is also on the clock for like making his team better. Like sometimes we get so enamored by the talent and the wow and everything else by these players and what the potential of what it could be. But when does the potential materialize into wins? You know, when you talk about like Karl Anthony Towns or like some of these players, it's like at some point you have to just like turn all the potential into W's. So I have them probably in that same bucket with Indiana, 6, 7, 8, because the East is better than people give it credit for. And I'm sure we'll get to the top 6 teams in a minute later.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got to the Bucks. There's definitely some other teams here we're going to definitely talk about. I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, I do have them a bit higher than where I have the Pacers. I have the Pacers 10th. I think the Bulls are going to finish 8th in the East. There's going to be some growing pains in it early on, but I think they're going to finally get things going. Honestly, their ceiling, if things all go right for them, is probably a 5th seed. But realistically, it's probably going to be in between the 5th and 10th seed. I'm going with 8th. I have the Bulls being good, but I don't think they're going to reach that second level just yet. Let's move on to the last team of the Central Division. This shouldn't take too long. Let's talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not a great team whatsoever. They did draft Evan Mobley with the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft. Interesting lineup they have like planned because Evan Mobley, even though he's like 7'2", he's starting at the power forward position next to Jared Allen. They still got the Sexland backcourt of Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. They signed Lowry Markkanen, which I thought was a questionable move as well. So they definitely revamped their roster. They definitely still have some talent, but the fit and all that, I mean, they still got Isaac Okoro, who they drafted the year before they drafted Mobley. Some talent, but I don't know about the fit. Tony, how are you feeling about the Cavs?
Health. If you told me that Sexton and Garland were healthy all year and were playing and producing, I could see them. I could see them winning some games. I think if everybody else is going to smaller lineups, maybe this isn't a bad idea to just try and like run a lot of like highly skilled guards trying to get easy buckets and throwing up lobs to Jared Allen and Mobley. Like, maybe they're a team that leads the league in rebounding. It's not good. They're not a great team. I'm not looking at this roster and going like, all right, mark this down. Look out for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like, I'd be shocked if that was the case.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I mean, this is probably the last year to kind of figure out if this Sexland backcourt is actually going to go well. I mean, Darius Garland has looked like who can be a good solid point guard piece going forward, but him next to Sexton, especially with the defense it deals to provide, very, very questionable. I'm with you. This is not going to be a great season for them. I don't think this whole like front court kind of matchup with Mobley and Allen, we're going to have to wait and see how that works. Both are good defenders, so we're going to have to see if they work well together. But in terms of my prediction, I mean, we don't have to go too much into this. I'm putting them at 13th. I'm putting them at 13th, right just ahead of the Pistons, just because I think this team has been together longer. They've got a bit more talent because with Sexton and Garland being with the team for a while, same thing with Allen. I think they're going to be a bit better. Hopefully Mobley could be in the Rookie of the Year conversation if he gets the opportunity. But yeah, it's not going to be a great season for them. Tony, where do you think they're going to be placed?
Probably somewhere in that same Pistons range I was talking about before. Like, yeah. This is something that we don't factor in when we're doing all this. And if I had like a cemented list and I had to put them somewhere, I'd say they're probably 13. Like, I'd say you're probably right on there.
Yeah.
But I could easily see this team staying healthy and grinding out 38, 40 wins and getting into the play-in tournament. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I could see that Sexton staying healthy and Garland are guys that can close out games. Like, I see them get and make big shots. Not a lot, but maybe if they're healthy, it becomes something that's more consistent. But I think you're probably closer to where they are. 12, 13 feels like a good play.
Yeah, I think they're talented, but it just, I don't know, the fit just seems very, very off to me. And let's just see how this 7-foot front court they're going to go. I mean, everyone's going small, and we're going to talk about the Raptors later, where they're going to go super small. But right now, they're going 7 foot tall. Let's see how this team's going to play out. Let's move on to the next division. We're going to go to the Southeast Division now. And then the first team we're going to be discussing is the Charlotte Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets last year, they made it to the play-in tournament, just barely making it as a 10th seed. LaMelo Ball, Rookie of the Year. And they looked good for a good chunk of the season, especially when Gordon Hayward was healthy. They made it as high as the 5th seed. But then after Gordon Hayward went down from injury, they started falling down a bit. LaMelo had to miss some time. And their youth definitely showed towards the end of that season. But they re-signed Terry Rozier to a big contract. I think it was like 3 years, 60 or 4 years, 80. They drafted James Bouknight in the draft, so that's another guard piece. And hopefully Gordon Hayward comes back from injury healthy. They also drafted Kai Jones as well, who could be a nice piece for them at the center position. I mean, actually not Kai Jones. I think that JT Thor, that's who it is. But I mean, this team, they showed some promise last year, Tony. How do you feel about them going into this season?
Again, this is a team that's a health concern, right? Because Gordon Hayward needs to stay healthy somewhere, whether it's in Boston or Charlotte or wherever he ends up. Like, please just play 75 games in a year and just show everybody how good and skilled you can be. LaMelo, the same way, he plays very fast. I don't want to say reckless, but the speed at which he moves up and down the floor, it feels like injuries are drawn to him. So I worry about that. I still think that this is a team just based on the talent, because I am a huge fan of Terry Rozier. If Terry Rozier ever has a chance to end up on the Lakers, he'll be one of my favorite players. I was a big fan of his in Boston. He's just sort of a bulldog. Like, he has the ability to say, give me the ball and I'm going to go win this in the fourth quarter. And you don't find that from a lot of guys that have that mindset. And I think it'll be interesting how that plays out. So Jordan needs a playoff appearance. Could we please? I just want to see MJ courtside between the Nets Bobcats first round or something. Could we please get MJ to the playoffs?
It's weird to say. I mean, one of the greatest players of all time. Definitely not one of the GOAT owners. It definitely has not gone great for him in Charlotte. This could possibly be the year, though. I mean, good draft picks. I mean, like I mentioned, Kai Jones, Bouknight, they look good. And, I mean, at least it's fun to watch. I mean, if you watch those Charlotte Hornets broadcasts, they have one of the most energetic commentators in the league. So if anything, they're going to just be a fun team to watch. Let's go into my prediction, though. I'm think that they're going to be a decent team, but I don't think they're going to crack the play-in. I have them one spot off the play-in at 11th place. I think their youth is going to show. I do not trust Gordon Hayward to last the full season. And I just think it's going to take some time for these guys to gel. Their defense for me is questionable unless, Kai Jones becomes a nice defensive anchor for that team. They don't really have the perimeter defense to really, hang with the big team. So, they have a chance to make the play-in. I think that their ceiling is probably like a 7th, 8th seed, but I think they're going to be just missing out on the play-in tournament in my prediction. I have them as the 11th seed.
Yeah, I would go a little bit higher. I would go 8, 9, just because I think that even if Gordon gets hurt, like I said, I like Terry and I like Melo. I would probably go in that 8, 9 range. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. The Hornets, again, must-watch team. They're going to provide a lot of highlights. I didn't even talk about Miles Bridges. This guy, one of the best dunkers in the league. You already know he's due for like a couple big dunks this season. It's going to be a fun team to watch. You should definitely be on the lookout for the Hornets. Moving on to the next team, we're going to be talking about basically a one-man team at this point. They traded away Russell Westbrook, and now it's just Bradley Beal. Let's talk about the Washington Wizards. I mean, they traded away Russell Westbrook. They brought in Kuzma. They brought in Harrell. And they also signed Spencer Dinwiddie as well. They traded away Westbrook, but they got some depth back. But I don't know. I'm looking at this roster, and I'm just like, what do you even make of this? I mean, Bradley Beal is going to basically score over 30 points again this season. But I'm just not a fan of their roster construction. Obviously, and they also have a first-year head coach in Wes Unseld Jr., so the fact that he has to deal with a lot of these veteran guys, a lot of these egos, is definitely going to be tough in his first season. But Tony, the Wizards this year, how are you feeling?
We need to put some respect on my guy Kuzma's name. He's an NBA champion. Kuzma,
NBA champion. Yeah.
I've already. This is my hot take, which I made when the trade happened or when the acquisition happened. Kyle Kuzma is going to be an all-star in the Eastern Conference this year. the Wizards are going to be bad, but Kuzma should get a pretty green light. He should get up a lot of shots in that offense. And he doesn't have to look over his shoulder for Daddy LeBron anymore. Is he disapproving of what I'm doing? Kuzma's going to have some games where he goes for 45, and he's going to have some games where he goes for 45 shots and 13 points. But there's going to be a lot of scoring on this team. I picture very little bad defense, especially down the stretch on this team. I don't know what Bradley Beal is thinking, saying I want to stay here. He feels like Dame East. It's like, bro, you're too talented. Go somewhere else, please. But they like the loyalty. They like the spot. I mean, scoring title for Beal. I feel like that for sure.
Oh yeah, this team's gonna get a lot of shots off. I mean, and just look at the potential starting lineup, it's probably gonna be like Dinwiddie, Beal, Kuzma, possibly KCP, and then Hachimura is gonna be in the mix. Montrezl Harrell. I mean, none of these guys are gonna play defense. Let's be completely honest here. Let's be upfront about it. This team is just not gonna be playing any defense. They're gonna be attempting a lot of shots, and it's basically the same as last year. They're gonna get a bunch of shots up, but they're not gonna be able to defend anyone. They're going to be a weird, like a top 10 offense, but I just do not think that they're really going to, make any noise in the Eastern Conference, even trying to make the play-in tournament.
I'll say this, though. I think KCP's presence is very undervalued, right? Like, he's one player that I definitely am going to miss on the Lakers team. Like, if there's an opportunity for a buyout and he can end up back at some point with the Lakers, I would want him back in a heartbeat. So I do think that there's some potential leadership here. I just don't see how a team that I see being a defensive liability in any game that's close, like you could just get a bucket on any of these guys if you are a decent player. Like, you're not sending maybe Bradley Beal, but he's going to be so exhausted from the offensive side of the ball. If he's got anything left on defense. Here's the last positive. Maybe some of those close games they were in, there's less than 15 turnovers from Russell Westbrook. Like maybe one positive that I could say, like maybe they turn the ball over and they win more, or turn the ball over less and win more.
Maybe. I mean, the thing is with KCP is that on a good defensive team with the Lakers, he's a good defender because he could play well and good with the team. If he's your best defender on this type of team, it's going to be yikes for me. It's going to be a big yikes. But I mean, a lot of offense from this team. Let's see how this team's going to play out. In terms of my prediction, I don't really have them making the play-in or not getting too close to the play-in. I have them coming 12th in the East, just underneath the Charlotte Hornets, but I still think there's a significant gap between those two teams. But it's going to be, at least, if you want to see some offense, just watch some Washington Wizards games. You definitely get a lot of that. Tony, where do you think they're going to finish?
A lot of talent, veteran. I don't want to be disrespectful to how good I think Bradley Beal is and what I think he's capable of. Some veterans I like. I'm going to go in that 9 to 10 range, right? I think they're bad, but I don't think they're that bad. I think they could get into a play-in tournament like they did last year.
Maybe. Yeah, we should definitely see. I mean, maybe their offense is probably just going to win them games on their own. So let's be on the lookout for that. Now let's talk about potentially the worst team in the East, potentially the worst team in basketball, the Orlando Magic. They blew up their team completely. What's left of that? You got Cole Anthony. You still got Markelle Fultz. They drafted Jalen Suggs with the 5th pick. Jonathan Isaac, I don't even know what his status is going into this season. You got that going on. You got 2 centers there in Mo Bamba and Wendell Carter. A young team. They also got a new coach. I think his name is Jamal Mosley. They got him from the Dallas Mavericks. This team is young. This team is inexperienced. I'm not a huge fan of what they got. They're rebuilding. They're basically tanking again this year. Tony, what's your thoughts on the Magic?
Well, I want to get this out of the way right at the top here. They're probably like the 16th seed in the East. Like I think the G League Ignite team is probably the 15th seed, and then they're I just, like I said, I don't know anybody on this roster. I look at it as like, at least when other people have blown things up in the past, I see what they're doing. Like they're acquiring draft picks or young talent or whatever. I'm not quite sure what's going on or what the plan is with this team.
Yeah.
There's not excitement. There's not hope. There's not like, it's a trip to Disney World. That's it. That's the only thing you can look forward to when you go to an Orlando Magic game.
Yeah, I mean, it's if anything, I mean, probably the like one of the most interesting facts about the team is that they have brothers playing on this team, and I just noticed that Franz Wagner, who they drafted this year, and Mo Wagner, that's I don't know, that's pretty interesting. But
Yeah, the Wagners are happy. They only have to, turn on one game every night.
exactly, exactly. But yeah, I mean, there's not much to go about this team. They're going on full tank mode. Hopefully, we get to see a lot of shots going up from Suggs. Hopefully, we get to see if Marco Fultz can come back from injury. But the whole Jonathan Isaac situation, I don't even know if he's going to be ready to play at least like certain games. But yeah, just got to keep tanking. Hopefully they can just get some luck in the draft lottery. We don't have to go much further into this. I'm just excited, honestly, just excited to see Suggs play for this team. I'm going to be just completely blunt. They're going to be the 15th seed in the East. If there's a potential 16th seed that like Tony mentioned earlier, they would probably be it there too. I'm assuming you're in the same boat as me.
Yeah, that's it's the Ignite, then the Magic.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on from the Orlando Magic or the Orlando Tragic. The Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks is the next team we're going to be discussing, and this team made a lot of noise last season. A team that was kind of by a lot of people thought they were going to be the underdog versus the New York Knicks. They beat them in 5 games, and they just continued to win and win. And they ended up taking 2 games off of the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. So they definitely made some noise there in the playoffs. Trae Young looking like an MVP type player. And for me, the reason I really like this team going forward is that they're just a deep team. They got players like Capella, John Collins, Bogdanovich, even the young guys like Cam Reddish and DeAndre Hunter have a lot of hope in them. So, the Hawks played very well last season. Tony, do you think that was just, a flash in the pan, or do you think this team is actually legit?
Nope, I think they're legit. And I got 3 things that I really want to get off my chest about this team. Kevin Huerter, dude can ball. He's not going to be a superstar in this league, but every once in a while they're going to be like, all right, Kevin's having a night. Let's get him the ball, and this guy's going to put up 30 points. And I think he's going to be a very valuable piece on this team. Number 2, Trae Young, who I don't love, but yet I love. He stole my heart when he went into the Garden and accepted the challenge of being trolled by all those people. And they're like, oh, he's a villain. And I think to myself, if somebody was chanting Tony Tucker's balding in front of all the world to see, I wish that I could give buckets like that. Like, I wish that I could just do that, hit you with a little bow, a little bit of take this home, with you.
Yeah.
And then lastly, John Collins, I need you to step up and be the best player on this team that I know. I know for a fact that John Collins has all of the tools to be the best player on this team.
Interesting.
He's 6'9". He can play defense. He can shoot the ball, shoot free throws. He can score inside. Like, he literally has everything there. But yet he's like, well, I'm not the superstar. Like, Trae's the super. It's like, no, bro. You are a freak of nature talent-wise. And now if you just believed in yourself, this is my argument with Chris Middleton, which you know that I love. It's like, Chris, you get buckets on everybody. Anytime you're a 6'7" guard who shoots fadeaways and can get to the rack, but yet you play with no confidence. I'm so tired of watching these guys that could be absolute studs be like, I yield because this person looks better on a Wheaties box than I do. Tired of that shit, John Collins. I want you getting 26 a night, 10 rebounds, swatting balls. John Collins, go.
I mean, he got his contract in the offseason, 5 years, $125 million. They're expecting him to be that second star beside Trae Young, and he really does need to show up. I'm expecting a big year from him as well. I'm a big fan of this team. I think that this team has the possibility of going, top 10 in both offense and defense. They have that type of depth. I love their coaching and Nate McMillan as well. He really turned that team around last year. And even the draft picks they made in the offseason. I mean, I'm a big fan of Sharif Cooper, who they drafted, and they just do a good job in free agency and all that. So I'm a big fan of this Atlanta Hawks team. I think that they could do really well. And my official prediction for this team, I have them again as like a top 5 seed. I have them going 5th this year. Yeah, 5th for me for the Atlanta Hawks, on the knocking on the door of home court advantage. I do think that that's a possibility, but I hope people like don't really take it too far. They're not title contender just yet, maybe a year or two away. Just let them develop together. But I have them coming in as the 5th seed. Tony, where do you think they're going to finish?
I'm right there, 4 or 5. Right, I could
Yeah.
easily see them catching breaks. Again, the NBA is about health. The Lakers should have been a 2 seed. They ended up a 7 seed last year. If you don't have health on your side, but you still have talent, you still make the playoffs, but you're not as high of a seed as you should be. So if health is on their side, I think they get home court advantage in the first round. If it's not, I still think they make the playoffs. They're in that 4, 5, 6 range.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. They even have a possibility if things go right for them to go back to the second round, possibly to conference finals. Maybe that's a stretch, but we'll have to wait and see this season. Final team of the Central Southeast Division, a team again, one of those offseason darlings that people want to discuss, the Miami Heat. Made it to the NBA Finals 2 years ago. Kind of crapped the bed last year. You know, they didn't obviously with the COVID protocols and all that, and just not playing well, especially near the tail end of the season. But they traded for Kyle Lowry. They brought in PJ Tucker. And honestly, their core, their starting lineup of Kyle, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, Bam, PJ Tucker, I'm a big fan of it. And they know how to get to the finals. They have the mentality. They have the pieces there. But Tony, how are you feeling about the Miami Heat this season?
This is such a tough. Do they still have Hero? Was he part of it?
He's off the bench. It's going to be him and Oladipo off the bench too. So they got some guys there on the bench.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in Jimmy Butler's heart, like just what he does to drive the force of certain teams. I like the team they've assembled. I like Spoelstra as a coach and Pat Riley as a leader. If the team is healthy, if Bam's healthy and Butler are healthy, right?
Yeah.
I also love your guy, Kyle Lowry. And I think that he can really be somebody that pairs with Jimmy Butler to pull all of the talent that's on this team together and say, hey, we have the most talent in the Eastern Conference. Let's go out here and whoop these guys. Like I'm buying the hype on the Heat coming into this season.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of the Heat as well. The only thing is, I mean, I talked about it earlier, their depth isn't the best. I mean, save if a Bam goes down or a Jimmy Butler goes down, you're really reaching into the bag to like a Caleb Martin, a KZ Okpala. And if, Bam goes down, I mean, who are you going to start? Dwayne Dedman? It kind of really drops off from there. So I think this team is built for the playoffs, the regular season. I don't know if their depth is going to hold up, but I'm a big fan of this roster. They definitely know what it's like to be there, to get to the finals. And of course, I mean, they got some guys on the cheap. I mean, Victor Oladipo, a minimum contract this year. If we can get anywhere close to what he was in Indiana, that is a massive X factor for this team going forward. In terms of my my prediction for this team, I'm pretty high on them. I have them finishing as the 4th seed in the East. I think they're going to get home court advantage at least in the first round. And, if things go right their way, and the big thing here is for them to stay healthy. They really do have to stay healthy. But I do have the Heat in the top 4 seed. Tony, where do you have this team finishing?
Yeah, I would edge out even a little higher. My sort of range would be 3 to 5. I said the Hawks 4 to 6. I would say that I like the Heat kind of like one step ahead of the Hawks each way. So maybe like as high as 3, as low as 5. Pat Riley's also the kind of guy that the deadline comes around, he's going to look to add some whatever they need. If they need that veteran depth, they bring in guys like JaVale McGee. I don't know. It's far away. We don't know who's available, but I'm talking about that sort of presence, big man that they can get on the buyout market or a cheap, trade. Yeah. Pat Riley's smart. He will look around, assess what they need, and bring in somebody at the deadline as long as this team stays healthy enough to be competitive all year.
Yeah, I 100% agree. This Miami Heat team, they are definitely a team to watch, and they could be very dangerous out in the East. final division before we head out. Let's go to the Atlantic Division, probably the most competitive division in all of the East. And let's talk about, firstly, the most polarizing team in this division, the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers, number one seed last year, Joel Embiid, second in MVP voting. But the way they went out the playoffs was rough. Ben Simmons obviously passed the ball in game 7 of the semifinals, and that basically made him public enemy number 1 in Philly. And now they had that whole saga going on in the summer. Is he going to get traded? Is he not? He looked like he was moving out of Philly, but now he just, reported to training camp and all that. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy what's going on over there in Philly. And apparently Ben Simmons might even start playing next week. I mean, if he plays in front of those fans, I don't know what the heck is happening to this guy, but oh man, there's been a lot of drama around this team, but they're still talented. They still got Toby. They still got Embiid. They got a championship winning coach in Doc Rivers, even though, a rough past few years in terms of his coaching. They're a good team, but Tony, how do you think they're going to deal with this season and, like, honestly, this whole Ben Simmons thing?
The saddest thing about this situation is that they are wasting Joel Embiid. Like, you can't go through the process where this guy's given you a couple of healthy playoff runs. Now, I say healthy. Last year he had like a meniscus tear, and the year before that he was battling shoulders and back.
Yeah.
But the guy's on the court, and he's giving you buckets and huge minutes. When does this shit just fall apart for him? Like, when does everything go south on Joel Embiid's body? And it's like, I could see a scenario. I think the widest range of outcome for the Sixers this year. They could be a 1 seed. They could be an 8 or a 9 seed. Like, that's how wide I think it is. Like, this really could fall apart. If you're at home and somebody on your team is being booed and heckled, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if Embiid has already kind of said some stuff, like, where he questions Simmons, and it's like, it's a weird locker room. I'm on the camp where I think Maxi's the better player for the team anyways. Like, if I was Doc Rivers, who seems to be incapable of making adjustments, why wasn't Maxi playing the whole fourth quarter? Why wasn't, what's the other, Hiliburton? Or not Hill, he's the guy in Sacramento. Who's the, help me out here. Who's the little Afro light-skinned kid they got playing in the backcourt there?
Shake Milton?
Not Shake, the other. Anyways, people will be like, I know who he's talking about. Yeah. But anyways, the other kid they got there should have been getting more minutes on that
Seth
roster.
Curry?
Seth Curry's good, but he's like a bigger guy, like number 22 or 20. What the fuck is his name?
Tobias Harris?
Not Tobias Harris. He's a starter.
Oh, Tybal.
Yes.
Tybal.
Yes.
Tybal, yeah.
Tybal should have been coming in and playing more minutes, and Maxey should have been coming. And Doc, for whatever reason, was like, well, we just, he's our guy. We got Simmons. Yeah. He's going to come around the fourth quarter. No, he's not, Doc. Stop putting him out there in the fourth quarter because he's letting you down. I don't know. Sixers are confusing to me.
They are, and they're honestly, like, I mean, you put it perfectly. They could be, like, the thing is, like, if Simmons is there, they've shown they could be a number 1 seed as per last year. But the thing is, like, all this drama going on, like, what is, like, the state of this team? They could really do fall into, like, a play-in situation if things go wrong for this team. And they have a wide stretch of the like, they have, like, such a wide range. And at this point, just to, like, have some sort of stability, they really have to get rid of him sooner rather than later. Hopefully they can get rid of him November-ish. I know he's still there, but getting him, like, out of there around November is probably the best idea. But the more they let this linger, the more it just, like, hurts the team as well. We're going to have to wait and see. Let's go into my prediction, though. The 76ers, I have them. I'm still pretty high on them. I still think even if they trade Ben Simmons, they still have something going for them. I have them being the 3rd seed. But like you said, anywhere from the 1st to 8th seed, the 76ers can fall into that. But what do you think? Where do you think they're going to finish ultimately?
I'm going to go somewhere in that, like, 3 to 5 range again. 3 to 5. But I will say this. I think that Daryl Morey is smart enough that he's going in that first 10 days of the season. If somebody's struggling or panicking and they have good trade pieces, I think that he pounces and says, hey, I noticed you guys got out of the gate slow. He's like, I got a 4-time All-Star over here that I'm looking to offload for Brogdon and somebody else.
Yeah.
That's it. Let me
Yeah.
move him.
Yeah. Hopefully they get to that sooner rather than later. Yeah. But I mean, it's been long enough. There's no way he should still be on the roster, and it's almost November. Let's move on to the next team. We're going to talk some home cooking here. Let's talk about the Toronto Raptors. Last year, they weren't even in Toronto. They were in Tampa, and they had a rough season. But the basketball gods blessed us and gave us the 4th overall pick, in which many people thought the Raptors are going to take Jalen Suggs. And nope, they swerved the entire league. They drafted Scotty Barnes. And for me, this team is really interesting because I've watched them in preseason live twice now. And the way that Nick Nurse is playing this team is just having a bunch of 6'9" guys who are long, who could defend, and just whoever grabs the rebound, just run up the court and just try to score quickly. I think the Raptors have like 8 or 9 people size at 6'9" at this point. And for me, this team is like very confusing. I mean, Siakam's going to start off the season kind of slow because of injury. We don't know when Chris Boucher is going to come back as well. It's a tough thing to predict, and I'm a huge fan of this, but I think this is going to be a huge social experiment here for the Toronto Raptors, and it can either implode in their face, or Nick Nurse is going to be the next, Albert Einstein of the NBA. But Tony, how are you feeling about the Toronto Raptors so far? I mean, they still got Van Vliet, Siakam, and all these like tall, 6'9" guys who are just long.
Well, I like to think that the guy, what's your guys' GM, what's his name again?
Oh, Masai.
I like to think he knows what he's doing. But how do you feel about the guy that you guys drafted? Like, what do you
Scotty
think?
Barnes.
Yeah.
I think that he is someone who has, in terms of like all around ability, he's probably the best player in the draft in terms of all around ability. In terms of being a superstar, I'm not sure he could be that. I know Suggs was the safe pick coming in at number 4, but I think the Raptors are really trying to set it. I don't want to say trendsetters because that sounds really weird in terms of a basketball sense, but they want to kind of switch things up. They don't want to go with the traditional 5-person lineup. They want to have just a bunch of guys who can like switch on the perimeter, play inside, play outside, and then just kind of have, the scores around them. But at the end of the day, I still think that the Raptors, I mean, this is a huge experiment. Like I said, this could mean that the Raptors finish bottom 4 in the East, or this could work out really well and they could finish 7th.
So let me say this about, I trust them and what they're doing. I really like Nick Nurse. And I think that pick was more of a reaction to how things went with Kawhi Leonard. You take Jalen Suggs, the NBA wants to puff him up. They turn him into a superstar. He leaves. You get an all-around good basketball player where he's not necessarily in Gatorade commercials and running the world.
Yeah.
You guys have a better chance of keeping that talent around. Like I think Van Vliet, didn't somebody offer him a bunch of money, but they were able to match it or whatever, he stayed. Looks like Siakam's going to be there for a little bit.
Yeah.
The Raptors understand that you want to have really good basketball players, but not so much that their marketability draws them to Chicago, New York, LA, or whatever it is. Like, put together a team sort of like San Antonio does, where you draft guys that are smart, high IQ basketball players that are committed to the game, and you don't need a superstar. You can be competitive, and you can turn guys into sort of low-key, like all-stars, repeating all-stars, and then all of a sudden they put together 10 years of their career, and you're like, damn, you're like, that guy, that guy might go to the Hall of Fame. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the Marc Gasol kind of players that you guys have had in the past, where it's like you get a big run out of their talent. Not Marc Gasol so much with you, but what he was with the Grizzlies.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Scotty Barnes, I mean, he's a great rebounder, great passer, great defender. The only problem is he's still trying to develop a jump shot, trying to develop an offense. But yeah, I mean, the Raptors, they're really trying to go in with all these like 6'9" guys. I'm excited to see how this goes on for season long. But again, this team is very, very like can fluctuate at any point in time. So in terms of my prediction, I might be a little bit biased, but I'm not going to have them like in the top 8. I have the Raptors finishing 9th. I do think that Nick Nurse is still one of the top coaches in the league. Hopefully when Siakam and Boucher get back, this team gets better offensively. But I'm a huge fan of Scotty Barnes. I'm a huge fan of still of Fred VanVleet. They brought back your boy. We brought back Gary Trent, who I know you're a big fan of as well.
Gary Trent.
So I'm a huge fan of this team, and I know I don't want to put too much emphasis on the preseason, but people like Precious Achua has looked really good, and all that. OG has been playing great, so let's hope that we can get a lot of that. But what do you think the Raptors are going to finish?
I like them to 8-9, right?
Yeah.
7, 8, 9. Like I still just believe that that Nurse is a good coach and that there's enough veteran talent there.
Yeah. Okay. I definitely that's definitely something interesting. Definitely, I agree with. Three more teams here in the East, and before we head out, let's move on to the Boston Celtics. This team was legit just 500 last year, 36-36. People had high expectations for them. They still got Jason Tatum. They still got Jaylen Brown. They brought back Enes Kanter. They brought back Al Horford, and they also signed Dennis Schroeder. But besides that, they still have a pretty similar lineup to last year with Robert Williams, Marcus Smart. And then they also got rid of Brad Stevens as their head coach. Well, not really get rid. He got promoted to general manager, and they also, which meant they hired Ime Udoka. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but I mean the Celtics team. They got 2 stars. I'm not a huge fan of the supporting cast, but Tony, what do you think of the Celtics team?
You know how much Jason Tatum is one of my favorite players. I root for this kid to reach his full potential, and I think that he's right there. Very close. The Celtics with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they should be the number 1 seed in the East. They won't be. They'll be like 5 or 6 or something, somewhere in that range where they finish up. But this team should have grinders. It has grinders. This team needs average Al, which is what my friend, who's a Boston Celtics fan, texted me the moment that they got Al Horford. He said, "We got average Al back." And that kind of is like, that was your suggestion to this move with all the bigs out there that you could have brought. You brought back Al Horford. So, and his Kanter, I think he's a good veteran big, doesn't really do much for me in the way of excitement, but Jason Tatum, I'm going to say it again. I said it last year, MVP season. I think this year he'll be, putting up numbers and buckets, especially with his running mate, Jaylen Brown, back out there, taking away some of the strife.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I mean, rough start for the Celtics already. Jaylen Brown has COVID-19, which he's going to miss a portion of the beginning of the season. And Average Al, he also contracted COVID earlier this week as well. So already a rough start to the Boston Celtics. I like Tatum. I'm a huge fan of Tatum. I hope he kind of pushes himself into that top 10 discussion this year. But this team around him is just pretty average. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's going to take some time for Udoka to kind of get the ball rolling, especially as a first-time head coach. We were hoping they would be elite by now, but they're not really like that. There's a lot. I can name like 3 or 4 teams for sure that are better than them at the moment, but they could still definitely, if things go their way, they could still fight for home court advantage. As for my official prediction, I have them going 6. I'm like right there with you, Tony. 5, 6 seed. I think that's great for the Boston Celtics. It's going to be hard for him to get out the first round, but if Tatum can blossom into the guy that me and you both think that he could be that guy. I mean, where do you think they're ultimately going to finish?
I'm going to go with the 5. Like, I feel like planted firmly in that sort of 5 seed, and this is the year. This is the year that everybody talks about Jason Tatum the way that I talk about Jason Tatum. Like, everybody else is going to join me in the high praise of Jason Tatum and what he can be. And you'll start to hear the crazy comparisons of Tatum and Kobe Bryant's and, those kind of players and stuff like that. It'll start being just like they did with Booker last year when he ended up getting a 2 seed in the West. Like, crazy comparisons will start to come out about Jason Tatum.
Let's hope and see, because I think this guy's a future MVP, but we're going to have to wait and see. 2 more teams. Let's go, honestly, to New York for both these teams. Let's start off with the New York Knicks. Last year, shocked a lot of fans. People thought they weren't even going to make the playoffs, and they finished as the 4th seed. Julius Randle, most improved player. a top 10 defense in the league. Coach Thibodeau won Coach of the Year as well. They had a really good season, and now they still have RJ Barrett. They still got Mitchell Robinson, but a key piece they added this year was Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker coming into the New York Knicks organization, and right now, I mean, Tony last year 4th seed. Do you think that was a fluke, or do you think actually the Knicks are, that type of team now, like part of that, upper echelon of the East?
So I think this is what Tom Thibodeau does. I think he really knows how to coach regular season basketball teams. We saw it in Chicago.
Yeah.
We saw it in New York. For this team to take steps, it's going to have to be Julius Randle, like really taking that next step of his leadership, because we saw him open up and shooting threes last year and stuff like that. So it's interesting. The Kemba Walker thing's a little confusing to me because he doesn't stay healthy. He's old.
Yeah.
Is he going to be your 6th man? But then you still brought back Derrick Rose, who's like a Thibodeau believer.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I think that last year's number was a little bit higher because they were able to avoid some of the COVID situations and injuries that other teams had.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they fall back down to earth a little bit this year. I don't know. It's kind of like they're definitely in a weird situation because I feel like they're still a solid team. But the thing is, the teams around the East, they just got better. I mean, the Bulls, they're kind of like made moves to be in that like their level. The Brooklyn Nets, they brought in a lot of depth. The Celtics are still have like 2 guys who are probably better than Julius Randle at this point. I mean, it's tough for they had a really good season. I'm not taking anything away from them, but they did get kind of fortunate in a lot of this. And, when it came to the playoffs, they just weren't ready. They got pounced by the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young over there. So, I mean, the Knicks are a good team. Coach Thibodeau is going to get them, good defense. And now with Kemba Walker, their offense should improve. But I'm still not fully sold on them. I think I see them in a play-in spot. In my official prediction, I actually have them as a 7th seed in the East this year. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're great, but there's a type of team that likes to grind it out. So they could make a chance of getting out of the play-in, maybe as a 5-6 seed, but I'm not fully convinced. I have them as a 7th seed. Tony, where do you think they're going to finish?
6, 7, somewhere
6,
in there. Like it'll come down to the last week or so, and I could see it being a 6, 7 thing that they're battling through.
Yeah, I mean, another thing, just one more thing before we move on to the last team. Will Julius Randle stay in this 24 point per game range, 11 rebounds, 40% from 3? I mean, just a quick question: do you think that he can maintain this coming into next season?
Yeah, I think he can actually take another step forward if he really wanted to, right? Like,
yeah,
if he increased the efficiency, like if he took some higher efficient shots and kind of relied on some of that other stuff that he was doing last year a little bit less. Like sometimes when you start making different kinds of stuff, you forget that you're 6'11" and you can dominate people in the post. So get down there and dominate and get 12 easy points in the 3rd quarter to start it off. So I think if he really pushes himself, I think he could be a 30-point a game guy. Like he has all the skills. It's not beyond him. Like he shoots okay from the free throw line. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think
he's like a 70 something. Yeah, he's like a 70 something. Yeah.
You just got to remember that you're big and have great, moves in the post. Get down there and use them and get 12 free points a game. Stop settling for jump shots and 3-pointers and fadeaways all the time. You can use it when you got it, but you don't need to settle for shots. So
yeah, no, he's very, very skilled. Yeah, so I'm definitely expecting a good season from him as well. One last team before we go. We mentioned them off the top of the show, the Brooklyn Nets. We talked about the whole Kyrie fiasco going on right now. He might not even play this year. But even still, without Kyrie Irving, this team is still loaded. And 2 MVP candidates and James Harden and Kevin Durant. They got LaMarcus Aldridge back. They took him out of retirement. They have Blake Griffin. They still have Nicholas Claxton over there. They signed Patty Mills. This is a deep team. They still got Paul. They also picked up Paul Millsap from free agency. I don't know. I'm surprised that they're able to get all these players like on cheap deals. They still got their 2 stars with or without Kyrie. This is still a damn good team, Tony.
It's still a very good team, and the reason it's a very good team is because they have Kevin Durant and James Harden on the same team. Like it was dangerous a decade ago. It's still going to be dangerous now. Like, it's going to be good. I'm glad to see, because didn't LaMarcus retire because of like some health concerns?
Yeah,
so,
he had irregular heartbeats in the middle of last season, but he was convinced that, like, he said he was okay now. He asked, I think, for doctor's opinions. I think he's good to go, and he's been playing in the preseason as well, so it's good to see him back.
Yes, and then I love it because there's nothing I hate injuries. Yeah. And I hate the injuries that are even more like where it's like a matter of life, and death type of a situation. So I'm glad to see him back. This team it's the Nets, right? It's Brooklyn. It's exciting. And with or without Kyrie, it's a top team in the Eastern Conference. It's a favorite to go to the finals.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing stopping the Brooklyn Nets is themselves. I mean, last year, what was the issue and why they couldn't get past the Bucks? It was health. The Kyrie Irving injury, the James Harden hamstring. I mean, Kevin Durant did all he could to bring this team to the conference finals, but the injuries were just too much. And I think that's the only thing really stopping the Nets, because if Harden's healthy, even if just Harden and KD are healthy, I still have them as the favorites in the East. They're still a fantastic team. I still think they're the championship favorites. They're just a damn good team. And the fact that they're able to get that much depth through free agency, through like some trades here and there, and very, very impressive. And it's weird to say that take off Kyrie Irving from a team and this team is still a title contender. I mean, that just says a lot about how this team is built, how good this team is. And it's going to be special. It's going to be a special, special team to watch. And I'm excited to see how they play this year. For the last time here today, Tony, where do you think they're going to finish?
I would put them at 2-3 range.
Yeah, 2 to 3 range. I completely agree with that. My official prediction for this season, I think they're going to finish as the 2nd seed in the East, but I still have them as the finals favorites out there in the East. They're going to have a really good team. The defense will still be kind of an issue, but honestly, if they're going to be scoring 120, 130 points a game, that's not going to matter. KD is a monster. James Harden's a monster. This team is just too good. Like I said, with or without Kyrie, this team is a title contender. But yeah, those are our official predictions. Let me know down below. Let us know down below whether you agree or disagree. Do we have teams that are too high, too low? Put it down in the comment section, in the Instagram comments, wherever you like. I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Before we go, Tony, do your plugging. Talk about whatever's going on at the Warzone Sports Network. What's going on in your channel? Tell the folks now.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed listening to me bump my gums, head on over to the Warzone Sports Network, hit the subscribe button. There is tons of fans and sports content daily, NBA, NFL, baseball, all sorts of stuff. We're always looking to collaborate and have fun with different sports fans. Warzone Sports Network.
Yeah, definitely go check them out. I've had a couple of those guys on my show before, so they're definitely some cool guys. They're doing like regular shows like throughout the week as well, fantasy, football, and now with the NBA season coming around, they're definitely going to be talking some basketball. So be on the lookout for that. As for besides that, I think this is where we're going to end it. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss an episode. And remember to follow TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for some awesome content. I'll be back on Monday, hopefully with a guest, but we're going to be making our predictions for the awards. So be on the lookout for that. And again, just thank you guys for all the support you've been giving ever since I came back on the pod. This is my 3rd episode back. So I'm very excited for just the NBA season in general. I'm excited to put out some content. But yeah, this is where we're going to end this. Thank you guys for all the support. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is me. That's Tony. We'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, guys. Peace.
Peace.